Hello out there, Internet. While I was going through my bookshelves, I thought I would share some of my favorite figure drawing books that you might find useful while trying to up your drawing and figure drawing game. This first one is Nine Heads. It's very much fashion-based as far as a guide goes of how to break down the human body. There is an extra head of length in the legs to make it look as though you are looking up at the figure as though they're on a catwalk. That's why they have the elongated figure. If you're into more theatrical drawing, you'll notice that more of the figures are 8 heads high due to looking down at the figure, which is the main difference really between the two. That being said, most of the principles that are in here can be easily applied back and forth. How to break down feet, how to break down wrinkles, what details look like, how to draw collars. That's all quite detailed in here, as well as like drawing faces and how to draw faces quickly, right, to suggest a face. It's pretty well illustrated in here. I would highly recommend it as a nice large book to work from. If you are interested in working hard on your figure drawing. If you are also interested in getting a more realistic approach and really honing those skills on making really human-looking figures that you're drawing, I would highly recommend Anatomy for the Artist. This is also really excellent for when you're trying to figure out why your this doesn't look quite right, of if your shoulders aren't quite looking quite right, or you can't quite figure out why your hands are looking funny. This is a great way of breaking it down because it really gets into the anatomy of it. For a warning, there are some pictures in here that are not PG, so if you are working on it with your small children home, you might be prepared to explain anatomy more or less. There's nothing erotic in it whatsoever, but there is certainly nude models in it, so just fair warning. I'll blur any out on this video if we run into any that are particularly egregious. But as you can see, there are shear overlays that show you where the bones are and the muscle groupings are, so that you can better understand why this bulges there when you move this to here, and you have some really interesting placements of the bodies in beautiful, beautiful color pictures and very artistically placed humans and models. As you can tell, a large fan, William Shakespeare here is, of this particular book. It's really a wonderful practice book for being able to draw dynamic and interesting figures that are informed by anatomy rather than just copying someone else's style, which there's nothing wrong with copying other people's style while you're learning to build your own. Honestly, that's a really great way of building mastery, is copying other people's styles. Lots of the great masters did it, and it's a good way of studying, how this line is drawn or that line is drawn. But if you're wanting to, build from your own understanding of how the body works, this is a great way of doing it. And if you have a mind kind of like mine, where if you don't understand it, it's never quite looks right, this is a great place to start. It helps explain the whys and wherefores of where problem areas are, more or less. Right. This one is a little bit less conventional in that it covers some of the stylistic choices you can make through digital rendering. Now, a lot of the stuff that's in here is kind of dated. That is more or less the way that pretty much anything digital works. And since it's printed, it's not really functional anymore to the point. But really, the things that are specific to this particular program or that particular program are not necessarily as important as some of the basic skills of understanding, which, if you want to learn the specifics, probably go and YouTube the specifics of how do you break this down or that down. But as far as knowing what words to Google, this is a great book for knowing which words to Google. That being said, if this wouldn't have been a textbook of mine, I'm not sure I would recommend buying it so much as borrowing it from the library. I think any library that is costume focused may want to consider one of these, but I'm not sure every individual needs one, since once you figure out some of the vocabulary and understanding what's going on, that it's a little bit less necessary to be able to keep and hold on to forever and ever. So those are my three favorites, other than drawing from the Right Side of the Brain, which, although based on faulty science, is an excellent day-by-day workbook. I lent mine out, and in my usual manner, I have no idea who, and so I'll have to get another copy of it at some point. But as far as this is your homework for this day, this is your homework for that day, that's an excellent book to be able to break down why the symbolism that, this is an eye, it doesn't work to make it look realistic. So I would highly recommend that one as well, but these are my favorite ones that I currently have on my bookshelf. I hope that was helpful, and thank you very much.